don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the car community. I would like to think that I'm a pretty big car enthusiast, and I have a lot of friends who are also in the community. Not just that, obviously making videos on cars and, being on social media, you see a lot of it these days. And one thing that I've never really understood is the amount of flexing there is. The thing is, the car as a whole is actually a huge purchase. If you think about it, it's probably the second most expensive thing people buy in their lives. Other than a house, a car is probably up there. It's probably second. Then again, saying that, I think I spent more on a holiday this year than both of my first and second car. But then I do buy old Japanese rust buckets, so that probably explains it. But what I'm trying to say is most people, and I probably will too, their second biggest purchase is usually a car. So it's a pretty big symbol of your status. It's a pretty big symbol of your lifestyle. It's kind of a big deal to a lot of people who do intend buying one. It's going to represent you as a whole. It's going to massively represent you. And of course, like all things, whether it's clothes or watches or anything materialistic like that, people usually like to flex a little bit, and cars are definitely no exception. It's funny because you do genuinely see it on social media all the time, but like most things on social media, you do not know the full backstory, and in life and in general anyway, even if it isn't the real world. And I've talked about this in previous videos, but a lot of people they'll buy a car and they won't buy it they won't buy it for themselves, but they'll buy it to impress others, or even worse, they'll buy it to impress women, which is it's probably even worse. The thing is, no one really cares. Realistically, no one really cares, and the people who do care, they're not the sort of people you want to be drawing attention to. At the end of the day, you live with that car. That is your car. So if it's something that you don't particularly love or you enjoy, especially as a car enthusiast, when each car you own does genuinely mean something. I know that sounds really corny, but you get what I mean. And people will finance cars to do this. People will take out money that money they don't even have, and on cars they really cannot afford, all just to have something that makes them look a little bit richer or a little bit, I don't know, look, it's never a good look. And in the car community, it gets even worse because you got people, bragging about how fast their car is, trying to flex different things like that. The fact of the matter is, no one cares, and actually people appreciate things much more when they're more personal to you. And it's unfortunate because this does tend to come from a place of insecurity. That's why it's cool when people have weird cars and they're not trying to show off. They're going for something that they really like. And trust me, you will end up saving a lot more money if you just buy something that you enjoy, unless you have a really rich taste, unless you do want something like a GT3 RS or a Ferrari 488. I don't know, I'm just listing supercars at this point. But be realistic with your finances, which kind of brings me on to my next point. Before I go any further though, I just want to say 90% of you guys are currently not subscribed, so please feel free to subscribe. It's free and you can always unsubscribe at any time. Anyway, back to the video. As I was saying though, a lot of issues in the car community recently, especially these days, because everything is just so expensive, come down to finance. Finance is a very dangerous game. Luckily I've never had to finance a car. I financed a few different things, here and there, but I've never actually had to finance a car before. I think the most expensive car I've bought is my MX-5, which cost me 3k. And sometimes in life you may have to finance something, if you can't afford a necessity and you need it. Fair enough. But the thing is though, a car is very expensive, and financing something like that can get you into a little bit of trouble. One of my favorite YouTubers, Jarek Mai, he actually he financed a A90 Supra, and he often talks about how it ran him into the ground financially. He just couldn't afford to keep it, and especially with all the modifications as well, it's just something that he couldn't really hold on to. And but now he's got rid of the Supra. He's bought himself an EK9 Civic and an NA MX-5, which he seems to enjoy a lot more, especially now he doesn't have the financial worries too. The thing is, as much as you may love that car when you first buy it, you will or you might start resenting it, because it becomes a bit of a financial burden. So if you can't afford something, just don't buy it. It's as simple as that. Right now I'm definitely not in the financial situation to get anything other than have anything other than my MX-5, and I love it. It's cheap. It doesn't cost me really much at all to run. Yeah, and it's good fun. I would love a C3 Corvette. I would love an E46 330 Ci. but I can't afford one of them right now, you know, so I'm happy with my Mazda. And a lot of people these days will push their financial situation as much as possible to get the thing that they want, but when they do finally get it, they start resenting it. So please, just I mean, you know, get something that you can afford. I mean, even worse is when people start financing mods. That is a really bad slippery slope. Financing a car is one thing, but definitely do not finance mods. I mean, even when buying something like a classic car or like a project car, which needs a lot of work doing to it, they'll end up sinking a lot of money into it, and by the time that they're, you know, halfway through the project, they'll end up basically with an unfinished car, and they'll have to sell it because, you know, they've run out of money. So yeah, just get what you can afford. I think the saddest thing though to touch on is the fact that you can just end up falling completely out of love with it. A lot of people used to love cars and now they don't, and it's, you know, there's so many reasons for that. Owning a car and a project car and being, you know, being into cars that are part of the enthusiast culture, it can be a lot, you know, financially, as we discussed in this video, but also just in general. You know, things can be pretty unreliable and expensive to maintain. There's so many factors, and especially with social media, it gets so competitive now. But often a lot of people just burn out and they fade away from the community, or they end up buying something that they don't totally love. And don't get me wrong, you know, you do get to a certain age where you have a family and you can't really be as much in the car community anymore because you have to buy something a little bit more sensible. But when you're young, when you're in your 20s and you don't have too many responsibilities, it's great to own these cars. You know, they're great stories, and you know, being a part of the community can be really fun. There has been times where I've been really frustrated with my car. You know, things have gone wrong, or, you know, just it's an old car. You know, so things are going to go wrong. But even, you know, the way the government treats older cars now with the amount of tax you have to pay in the UK to keep it on the road. So it can be difficult. And with the community, you know, being how it is sometimes, you do sometimes just want to get something a little bit more sensible, and, you know, something that's not going to cost you as much money, or something just newer. But the thing is, you just have to own the cars you love now, because you will get to a certain point where it will be a lot harder. The older you get, the more responsibilities you have. So yeah, just you know, enjoy being in the community and enjoy having an enthusiast car now. I mean, hopefully you're good enough financially where you can keep your enthusiast car, or, you know, buy one. But yeah, if your passion is cars and you're a car enthusiast, try and keep it, because it's very easy to burn out. I think the main thing to take from this video is just the fact that people need to enjoy their car more and not try to impress others. You know, don't care what other people think, and don't try and stretch your bank account, you know, for a car that you don't even really want, or for something you just can't afford, you know, even though it can be very, very, very tempting. Overall, I do just want to say, if you did find some enjoyment in this video, please consider subscribing. Like I said, it's free and you can always unsubscribe at any time. I also make videos like this all of the time, so if you did enjoy this one, feel free to check out the others. Anyway, I will see you in the next one. Ciao for now.